Wonderful. All right. Well, thank you all so much for joining us today. This is our Voices of Inclusion speaker series. And all of our folks here today are members of our Best Buddies programs in one way or another. So we're really glad to see you all here. We have guests today talking to us about the important voting rights that we have and the things that you need to know to be a voter. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Lauren Cristella and Ashley Sessions from the Committee of 70, and they're going to be sharing a presentation about voting. Thank you.
I think they're muted and I'm trying to unmute them. Try it again, Lauren. Doesn't let you do it. Okay.
So I'm Ashley. Lauren's trying to get unmuted. We are so excited to be here with you all today. And we're going to walk through, Lauren will walk through. I will help to manage the chat box. So if you have any questions while Lauren is presenting, feel free to just drop your chat, your questions or your thoughts inside of the chat box. And I'll be monitoring that for Lauren and as she goes along, okay? Lauren?
Thank you, Ashley, for jumping in so seamlessly. And thanks for having us. We're so excited to talk to you today. Ashley and I are also board members at the League of Women Voters of Philadelphia. So you'll see some co-branding on this. We give this presentation kind of all over town. So a little bit about who we are. The Committee of 70 is a nonpartisan, nonprofit organization. So again, Millie said, we're not going to be telling you who to vote for, just how to make sure you are prepared to vote and that your vote counts. The League of Women Voters is celebrating its 100th anniversary this year, along with the 19th Amendment, the 100th anniversary of the 19th Amendment that gave women the right to vote. So it's been a big year for our organization. There's a big election, and we're excited to do what we've done for a combined 216 years, and that's help people cast their votes and make sure their votes are counted. So in our presentation today, you're going to learn a bit about what's on the ballot, what offices we're voting for, some tools that will help you learn all about the candidates. You can do your own research. We have everything you need on that front. How to apply to vote by mail. This is a new option for Pennsylvania, so we want to make sure everyone is prepared to do that if that's your choice, or to how to cast your ballot safely in person and track your ballot, all of that good stuff, if that's what you'd like to do. So before we get started, I just want you to think, what does voting mean to you? I think when we can go through some answers too at the end. But just reminding everybody that you vote for yourself, right? You're voting for your own choices and what would be best for you. But you're also, it's a civic act, right? It's something you do for your community, what would serve your community, and thinking about your neighbors and people you care about and what would be the best choices for them. And Ashley, feel free to interrupt me throughout if there's questions that pertain to whatever we're doing. No need to wait on that front. Okay, so everyone is familiar with this now, right? We have face masks. It's our new normal. But I should say that the law in Pennsylvania changed actually before the pandemic hit. So the Pennsylvania legislature came together and decided that everyone in Pennsylvania should have the opportunity to vote by mail, not just if they had an excuse like they were sick or couldn't get to the polls because they're out of the state or county. So every single person who is registered to vote in Pennsylvania is eligible to vote by mail. Your ballot must be received. Well, they want it to be in by 8 p.m. on election day. They just changed the rules last week to say that if it's postmarked, if you dropped it in the mail and the mail stamped it November 3rd, it would count even if it was received like November 4th, 5th, or 6th. We don't want you to wait that long. So you're going to hear that message over and over and over again. Do not wait. If you're going to vote by mail, do it now. Apply for your ballot and then send it in as soon as you can. We also have a new option in Pennsylvania. Because of the same Supreme Court decisions last week, satellite election offices are going to exist. They're hoping to have 17 offices in Philadelphia. Each county will have a different amount. And then also drop boxes. right? So you're going to want to check your county website or call your Board of Elections to find out exactly where those will be. Our city commissioners in Philadelphia are still rolling out that plan. So here are the important deadlines. The last day to register to vote is October 19th. The last day to apply for a mail-in ballot is October 27th. Do not wait till that day. The mail is slower than it really should be right now, and it will take too long for that ballot to get to you if you wait till the 27th to apply for it. So you want to do that, take care of that early. And then you have election day is November 3rd, but we'll talk about a little bit more about that too for in-person voting. This is our flatten the curve. This is language that we've heard a lot about in terms of the pandemic, right? We wanted to wear our masks and social distance and all of that stuff so that we didn't overwhelm the hospital systems. This is the same with the vote by mail. If everyone waits till that deadline or close to the deadline to apply, it's going to overwhelm the Board of Elections. They're not going to be able to process your application quickly enough, and then you're not going to get your ballot. You won't be able to vote by mail. So if you apply now, you see the curve is starting to come up. It's, we're approaching October here. We want to take care of that. As we would say, like, your deadline to apply should be today. All right. So if you need to register to vote, these are the kind of requirements here. I think everyone here is a PA resident for over 30 days, so nothing to worry about, and at least 18 years of age by election day. You can register to vote. This is votespa.com. That's where you'll be able to take care of that online. You can also, the cool thing about these satellite election offices that will be available to Pennsylvanians is that you can walk in, you can register to vote on the spot, immediately apply for your vote by mail ballot. They will hand you the ballot on the spot. You step aside, you make your selections, and then you can hand it right back to them. So it's not really early voting because you're not doing it on a machine, but you can take care of it all in one visit and make it really easy and guarantee that your vote is in the hands of election officials before that deadline. So these are all the different ways you can register to vote. You can go to that votespa.com website I mentioned earlier. You can do it by mail. There's a paper application if you need to print it and do it that way. You can go in person to your county voter registration office or the satellite election offices. And you can also do it at the Department of Transportation, libraries if they're open, and post offices will also have that ability. So something we are very actively, Ashley and I talk about this a lot in our job. There's a lot of misinformation and disinformation around vote by mail. People are saying it's filled with fraud. Well, let's see what people are saying. Right? I'll go through. So the first is voting by mail will lead to voter fraud. Right? People are going to steal votes. They'll steal your vote. They will cast a bunch of ballots that they shouldn't, right? These are all the kind of allegations you hear out there. And what we know is voter fraud like this is really, really rare. It might be new to Pennsylvania, but vote by mail is not new to a lot of other states across the country, right? Oregon's been voting by mail exclusively for 20 years. Colorado, Utah, it's a Republican leading state. It's not all Democratic leading states. And what they found is that they built in security measures, and we'll talk a little bit about those too. But they work, right? The security measures that are in place for how to apply for a ballot, how to track your ballot, how to submit your ballot, how they're counted, should give you a lot of confidence that your vote will count if you vote by mail. Nothing really to worry about. I have to figure out how to say this number. That's a lot of zeros after the decimal point. It makes it really, really rare. All right. The second myth, mailing my ballot increases the risk that my vote won't count. Post office will lose it. The election officials will toss it in the trash. Those kinds of things you hear. Certainly if you're on Twitter, you hear that a lot. But as long as you fill out your ballot properly, which we'll go through because it is a little bit more complicated than voting in person, and you return it before the deadline, you can have a ton of confidence that your vote will be counted. Thanks to this awesome barcode that the outer envelope of your vote has, of your ballot, you can go online and track exactly where it is. So like you would track a package. You can see right now, like I have already applied to vote by mail. So when I go to that website, it tells me that my vote is pending. That they know they've received my application, it's been approved, and they're just waiting to send it to me, which I think will happen on Monday in Philadelphia County. Then once I get it, I fill it out. If I drop it back in the mail, I can check that website, and in 5 to 7 days, let's say, it should say that it's been received by the county office. If you maybe go 10 days, 12 days, and it's still saying that they haven't received it, you can call your county board of elections and check that out, or go to a satellite election office and ask them to kind of spoil that ballot and validate that ballot and give you a new one on the spot, which is also a good option. That again, this is that website. You can feel free to jot that down. I can also send a list of links after for you to have. All right, myth number 3. Voting by mail gives one party an unfair advantage. And what has been proven time and time again in all of these other places is that because it's so easy to vote by mail, and you can do it on your own timeline, you don't have to get off of work, you don't have to get a ride to the polling place, it just increases turnout. More people vote. In places like Oregon and Colorado, in big elections like the one we're about to have, voter turnout is like 96%. We might hit, what do you think, Ashley, 72% if we're good, if like that's going to be, unprecedented turnout. So it just makes it easier. So if your state is filled with Republicans, more Republicans will vote. If your state is filled with Democrats, more Democrats will vote. It just increases turnout regardless of the party. All right, applying online. They just fixed their website so that you can apply online for your ballot with the last 4 digits of your social security number and a photo of your signature that you can write. You can just do that right with your phone and upload it. Or you can just use your driver's license or your photo ID, right? So if PennDOT, if you have a state issued ID, that number will link right to you. They'll be able to validate that you're eligible to vote, and you'll be all set. You can also use a form to print it out and mail it in, but you need to provide your own envelope and your own postage. This is a little, if you want to vote by mail forever, you can click a box that says, for this calendar year, you'll receive a ballot automatically by mail. It will also put you on a list to be asked if you want to apply to vote by mail again. So it's like for next year, you still have to apply technically, but they make it really easy. They'll like nudge you about it. So beyond that, make sure to provide your email address when you do this online. So that way you'll get email alerts when your ballot moves through all the steps, right? They'll tell you that your ballot's been mailed, received, and then counted. Most of the time, that email system did not work perfectly in the primary, I will say. But the website does. So if you just check yourself, you're good there too. So this is how, if you wanted to do this in person, you can go to a satellite election office and walk through this process with a Board of Election staff member and drop it in the mail. All right, again, just to cover some of the points, do not wait until that October 27th deadline. If you're gonna submit it in a Dropbox or to an election office, you have to do that by 8 p.m. on election day. If you're dropping it in the mail, I would not suggest waiting until the 2nd or 3rd to drop it in the mail. You just don't know when they'll postmark it technically. But if it is postmarked by November 3rd and received by the office by November 6th, your vote will count. It will be counted. We'll send the links. Each of your county Board of Elections sites will have the locations of all of the drop boxes and all of those satellite election offices. So that's a really easy option if you're worried about the mail and the delays. I highly recommend using one of the drop boxes. All right, so what is on the ballot this time? In this election, we're going to be voting for President of the United States, your U.S. House, like the Congress people, PA Attorney General, the State Auditor General, State Treasurer, And in the General Assembly, our legislature, you're going to be voting on all of the House of Representatives and half of the Senate. And then each county will probably have its own ballot questions, things like that. I think we have 3 or 4 in Philadelphia this time. So how do you make sense of all these candidates? How do you do your research? We make it super easy. So you just go to this website, ballot.70.org, type in your address, and you will get the ballot that is specific to you, right? So exactly what House of Rep candidates are on the ballot. You'll see all of that. We survey all of those candidates, and anybody who responds to us, their answers are posted verbatim in that website. And then you can go through, and you can also, we have the links to all of their social media, to their campaign websites. And then we also have a description of the offices, which we'll get to in a second too, because you should really think about elections as interviews, right? You're hiring for a job. You're the hiring manager. You're going to be the person making the decision about whether or not this person is good for this job. So an important part of that is knowing what the job duties are, right? What is the position you're hiring for? So let's go through. So this website also has that. And then at the end, you make all your selections. You go through every race over here through your state candidates. You learn about the ballot questions. The last piece of this will be to ask you to make a plan to vote. So if you choose to vote by mail, it'll send you to those websites I just mentioned, votespa.com, give you what you need to apply to vote by mail. If you choose to vote in person, it'll help you find your polling place, and it'll even put a reminder on your calendar. So if you pick a time and head to the polls. All right, President, I think we probably all know what this one is. To tweet all day? No, I'm kidding. That's the President of the United States is both the head of state and of the government, as well as the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, responsible for executing and enforcing the laws created by Congress, conducting foreign policy, making a wide range of appointments, including the US Supreme Court, which we are in the middle of right now, right? With Justice Ginsburg's passing. So they can serve no more than 2 4-year terms, and the annual salary is $400,000. We put the salary information in there to kind of emphasize that this really is like hiring for a job, right? These people are paid a job to work for you. So how are you gonna pick? All right, the U.S. House of Representatives shares responsibility for making laws with the Senate, right? That's the other house of the legislative branch in our federal government. There's 435 seats based on population, so that's where the census comes in. If you've been hearing a lot about the census lately, we're in the middle of finishing the count. Every 10 years, we kind of shift the seats based on population, but doesn't exceed that 435. Pennsylvania is actually going to lose at least 1 seat, and if the census count doesn't go as well as it hopefully will, we might lose 2. They'll shift to places where more people are living. The Pennsylvania currently has 18 seats, right? So that's what I was just saying. And the annual salary is $174,000, and people can serve a really long time. Some people, right, 30, 40 years in Congress. All right, PA Attorney General. This is our chief law enforcement officer. They're responsible for prosecuting criminal charges brought by the Commonwealth, as well as civil suits, right, on behalf of some people and state agencies, or on behalf of the agencies. They don't represent the people. The office also provides civil enforcement of some of the Commonwealth's laws, including those involving consumer protection and charities, right? So if nonprofits aren't doing what they're supposed to do, foundations, et cetera. The Attorney General represents the state government in actions brought by or against it, and reviews all proposed rules and regulations by state agencies. So that's like top law enforcement officer, your Attorney General. Auditor General, this one, I must confess, I did not know much about that office before starting at Committee of 70. So the Commonwealth Chief Fiscal Watchdog, responsible for conducting audits to ensure that the state funds are spent legally and properly, right? So all of that, all of your tax dollars, they're making sure that they're not, fraudulent or wasted. Such audits may be focused on ensuring the accuracy and reliability of state financial records and performance of government programs. So that is the Auditor General. The Treasurer. Primary duty is to safeguard and manage nearly $100 billion in state funds. So this is managing the investments in, for me, I have small kids, so I'm worried about the 529 account. That's that college savings program that's managed by the state, right? So he's in charge of that, or the person, not necessarily he. And the unclaimed property program, which is also a fun website, which I recently checked. And I believe my boss just got some money back that he didn't know was coming to him. So it's a great site. Check that out. All right, the PA Senate. Pennsylvania's 50 state senators are elected to 4-year terms from districts across the Commonwealth. Representing each district represents about 250,000 people. Although the state Senate districts are a lot bigger than those House districts, the legislative functions are very similar, right? They come together to make the laws in Pennsylvania. And then they pass them up to the governor for signing or for veto, right? And this is the PA House of Representatives. There's 203 of these positions, and they serve about 62,000 people, right? 62,500. And they work with the Senate to make the laws that the governor will either sign or veto. They are elected to 2-year terms, and I believe they are unlimited as well. All right, so now you know the offices that are on the ballot. You're going to use that ballot tool to see all the candidates, evaluate them, make your picks. You can save them right in there. When your ballot arrives or you head to the polls, you should pull up that list that you saved and get down to business, right? You're going to make your selections. So if you vote by mail, these are all the pieces that are going to come with your ballot. This is the ballot here. This is instructions on how this whole thing works, right? on exactly what you should fill out. This is a description of the ballot questions, like a plain English explanation. The wording that they use on the ballots is very complicated, so they kind of break it down for everybody. And then these are 2 very important pieces, in addition to your ballot, obviously, are the secrecy envelope here, this just plain white envelope that separates your ballot from your name. And this is the outer envelope that gets signed and mailed back. In Pennsylvania, they have, the Department of State has covered the postage, so no need to use a stamp. It'll go first class back to the election office. And some other things to keep in mind. You can only use blue or black ink to fill out your ballot. No glitter pen, no pencil, blue or black ink only. You cannot like cross out, if you fill in the wrong circle, you cannot then cross it out and fill in a different one. So you want to make sure you're very intentional about the selections you're making, because the scanner won't know that you're what your cross out means, right? It'll just look like you voted for multiple candidates. You want to fill in the whole circle, no check marks, no X's, no tiny dots, right? You want to fill in that whole circle to make sure the scanner can pick it up. And then the biggest piece is the secrecy. After you make all your selections, making sure you include that secrecy envelope, because your vote won't count if you don't include that envelope. That's a big one. That decision came down last week. So we're saying dress your ballot. Right? So these are the kind of explanations of those, right? Can't vote for more than the number, right, that you're supposed to. If it's a race where you're picking one, you have to pick one. And if you're going to write in a name, just make sure you write it in and still fill in that circle. And then here's the process, right? Your ballot goes into the secrecy envelope. The secrecy envelope goes into the outer. You seal it. You sign it. You put your address here so that if the mail, has any problems, they know where to take it back to. And then this is the barcode that allows all that tracking we talked about earlier, right? So no naked ballots. Make sure your ballot is wearing its envelope clothes. All right. So what if you change your mind or your dog eats your ballot? This is something that actually happened in the primary. We have photographic evidence. I don't know why the dog hates democracy, but it happens. So what do you do if you need a new ballot or want to vote in person after you apply to vote by mail? So say news is making you nervous, you change your mind, you're filled with civic spirit and want to go to a polling place on election day. What happens? So any voter who needs a new ballot can go to one of these satellite election offices or call their county election officials prior to election day and say, my dog ate my ballot. Please spoil that ballot and send me a new one. And that's what they'll do, right? They make it so that that barcode doesn't apply, right? That it's not going to be counted if anything comes in with that barcode, and then they'll send you a new one that's tied to your name. On election day, if you don't mark your ballot, you just said, you know what, I said I wanted to vote by mail, but really I wanted to vote in person. You can bring both of those envelopes, the secrecy envelope, the outer envelope, and your ballot with you to the polling place. And the poll workers there, the judge of elections, has a procedure that they will go through with you. You sign a form, you give them back the ballot, and they'll let you vote on the machine. As easy as that. All right, so another thing to remember, with all of these vote by mail ballots out there, and then hopefully not coming in too late on election day, but they're not allowed to start sorting and counting until 7 a.m. on election day, right? So I think there was 275,000 ballots the last I checked that were going to be vote by mail. That takes a long time to just open the envelopes, take them out of that secrecy envelopes, put them in the scanners, right? So we're not going to have a winner on election night. So election day, so election week is the new election day. So no big parties on election night because there's not going to be too much to celebrate one way or the other. We're not going to know a lot. And that's normal and that's fine. And it doesn't mean that anything was broken or that there's fraud or that the system is rigged. It just means it's going to take some time to count those vote by mail ballots. So everyone hold tight. All right, so some other things. So you cast your vote, right? But we're at that point. What if you need help? What if you see evidence of somebody is trying to figure out who people are voting for and is being aggressive while people are waiting in line or making it hard for people to get to the polling place? This is the number you can call, 866-OUR-VOTE. And this is filled with lawyers and volunteers who are ready to swoop into action to protect our election. So we can share those resources too. It's a great, they have volunteer opportunities and other things to get involved on the other end too. Poll workers, depending on what county you're in, Montgomery County has fully filled all of their staff, their polling spots, positions, and also filled their wait list. So the call, Ashley and I have spent a lot of time doing poll worker recruitment over the last couple of weeks, because if we don't have fully staffed and well-trained polling places, there's chaos on election day and people will be disenfranchised and won't have their right to vote, right? So it seems like it's working and we've been really excited. There's a lot of bad news out there, but this has been a bright spot in seeing all of our community members who say they want to make sure that their community's voice is heard on election day. And they've, despite the COVID risks and all of that, they've volunteered. So these are some additional resources. So if you need help getting your IDs or registering to vote, this organization will provide people and funding and money to make sure you can get those IDs. Like if you needed your social security number, you lost your card and needed to get a new one, they would help you go through that whole process. It's a terrific organization, it's Vote Riders. This is for the high school students and college students in your life. They focus on peer-to-peer voter registration, so getting high school and college kids to register their friends, and it's just a great program with lots of resources. Let's see, and then yeah, any questions? I think Ashley is muted. Andrew, can you unmute Ashley? There.
Okay, thank you.
So what do we got?
What do we have? Okay, so we've had some discussions around who people are voting for, and that's awesome. However, we're nonpartisan. So just make sure you vote for the person that you feel most closely represents who you are. And then we have some, we love our moms. I love my mom too. She just texted me in this. And then, I'm sorry, I'm scrolling. And then we have some, not too many questions. Oh, curious, why are there so many important positions? Thank you, Andrew, for this. Being voted on in this election.
Why are there so many important positions?
Yes, being voted
Okay,
on
so
in the
that's
election.
well, one, because they know a lot of people are going to come out to vote for president, right? So you want people to vote for other positions while they're there. But that's a really good point. And there are really important positions on the ballot every year. There's an election every year, not just every 4 years when we vote for president. So in the spring, we'll have the primaries. And in the spring, we're going to be voting for our district attorneys. So we talked about the attorney general as the top for the state. District attorney is your chief law enforcement officer for your city or for your county. And that is a really important role. That decides, who gets prosecuted for crimes and how severely are they punished, right? Do we push for the death penalty? Do we push for life in jail or something lesser, right? Those decisions are made by people that we elect. So if you want to see changes in the criminal justice system, that's a really important race to pay attention to. And that's in the spring and then in the general election next fall. Other great things like, even down to your school board, places like that, those are the positions. These down ballot races are the ones that really affect your community and have more of an impact on your day-to-day life than, the president might. So yeah, lots of important decisions to make.
Yep. Okay. Sorry, more questions are coming in. Trying to keep track. Okay. There was a kudos to Montgomery County for filling the poll workers. If somebody needs help in reading their ballot, is there assistance available to help them?
Yes, so that there's a lot of different places that can provide that help. And if you're getting help from even just someone who lives in your house or a friend, especially on that vote by mail ballot, there's a spot for them to sign to say that they helped you complete that ballot. And that's a totally normal, okay thing to happen.
And to that question, Judith asked, do I need anything in advance to be able to assist my disabled son in the booth? And that's the voter assistantship piece.
In person.
Yes.
I'm trying to think. There's usually a poll worker on hand to do that, right? So they don't let just individual people come in to the polling place with you, I don't think.
So yeah, so there's a voter, no, she can. So there's a voter assistantship. I will look while we are answering questions, or Millie, I'll look after this and send you the form. They can actually go in the booth. It's the same thing as like a language barrier in the booth with this person, but they have to sign a declaration prior to.
You are.
Yeah, and that's in Philadelphia County specifically that I know that can happen. It's called voter assistantship. Do people need to present ID at the polls, Lauren?
Only if it is their first time voting at that polling place. So if you voted there before, you do not need to show ID, you just sign the book. If you've moved or if it's the first election you're voting in person, you're gonna want to bring your ID. And there's a long list of different IDs that are eligible for that. So we can, I think at some point, if you don't have a lot of the photo IDs, you can use a piece of mail and something else to show that you live where you say you live. And we can share that too.
Okay. What if someone needs accommodations, polling place, assistance reading the ballot? So I do know if they're alone that the judge of elections will help. Or one of the poll workers, but if you have somebody with them, usually they just have to fill out a form. Has there been a reduction of polling places in PA? Where's the best place to find out where you should vote in person?
Yes, so your county, well, you can use our website, has a polling place locator, so you can go to wevote.7v.org and just type in your address and it'll tell you where your polling place is. Most will not be set until 20 days before the election. Right now, because the staffing is so good, we're seeing such a good response for poll workers, it's anticipated that most polling places will be open. It won't be anything like it was in the primary where we saw over 70% of polling places closed. But you should check where your polling place is because it might be that they changed locations. It's still your polling place and still open, but if you were voting in a senior center, you're probably not letting people come in to vote there, or at a firehouse, there are no longer options for polling places, so they just have to find new spots. So you just want to check before heading out the door on election day. Any other questions?
I just dropped the link to the Votes PA website talking about where it talks about accessible voting. You can kind of, Judith, I dropped it here, but I also will send it to Millie as well.
I see Colin has his hand raised. Andrew, you want to let Colin ask his question?
Yes, Colin, I unmuted you. Go ahead.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, Lauren and Ashley, for going over this today. My question is, so normally because of my disability, my dad comes in the booth to help me with pushing the screen. Because of COVID, is he allowed to come in the booth with me or no, because of the social distancing and guidelines of the new virus? I wasn't sure, so I just wanted to ask.
Yeah, that's a really good question. That's a really good question. So the polling places will have a lot of social distancing, and they're encouraging everyone to wear masks. The poll workers will have their masks on and have hand sanitizer available. But because your dad is in your pod, right? He's part of your family, so you'll be able to go. Anybody that you bring with you, if you want them in the booth with you, they'll be allowed to stay with you.
Oh, awesome. Thank you. I appreciate it.
That's a great
problem. That was a very
Along
good.
those same lines, do you know of what they're doing to sort of sanitize after each person? Are they putting a lot of that in place?
Yes, they're taking that very, very seriously. We're even part of a team that's training all the poll workers on how to limit the COVID risk. So the state is providing masks and face shields and sanitizing wipes for the machines and tons of hand sanitizer to make sure that people feel safe when they're there. There's going to be pens, tons of pens, hopefully, so that you can also bring your own pen is a good idea, so you don't have to touch their pen that other people might have used. But yeah, there are new procedures, and the poll workers are being trained on that.
And voting early in person does require you to apply for an absentee or mail-in ballot. Is that right?
You do it all in one step, though.
Okay.
So you would just go to the satellite election office. Even if you weren't registered to vote, you could do all of those steps at one time because they're tapped right into that state secure system. So you can register to vote immediately, apply to vote by mail. They hand you your ballot, the paper ballot. You step aside, fill it out, and then you hand it right back to them. So you're just basically accelerating all of the steps of vote by mail.
And you would do that maybe if you wanted to avoid the lines or the crowds on election day. So when does early voting start, or is that different for each region?
So it's different for each county. In Philadelphia County, they are starting September 29th, and they're going to be open 7 days a week. The hours are a little wonky. I don't remember them off the top of my head. It's like Monday to Thursday, there's one set of hours, and then Friday, Saturday, Sunday has a different set. They're really kind of flexible hours. And the 7 days a week from now until election day makes that really easy. You won't have any lines. And then they're hopefully going to add another 10 in the next couple weeks once they have the staffing together. So we'll have 17 total spots that you can, in addition to the drop boxes.
And I know we do have a couple people from our friends in Pittsburgh joined us on the call today.
Oh, nice. And
we will be sharing this on our Pennsylvania social media. So in case somebody's watching that is not in the Philly area, is your website still going to have good information for them to look into their local elections?
Yes.
Okay.
For sure. So that ballot.70.org, that voter guide that helps you pick your candidates, that works anywhere in Pennsylvania. And our website has all of the links, and that Votes PA is the state site. So you're set no matter where you live.
And will we get stickers is my question. Will we get a sticker when we vote?
When you vote in person, yes.
Okay.
I am hoping, I've asked for this, that hopefully that they're doing this at the satellite election offices too, to make sure that people who vote early get it too. And then the Committee of 70 has downloadable Zoom backgrounds and social media icons for everybody who votes by mail and doesn't get that sticker, because I know I missed it in the election. So I make it my background says I voted. It's a bunch of stickers and all of that good
You know,
stuff.
priorities.
Yeah. The important stuff. That's really what we're focused on.
And hey, Lauren, if I could just point out, Nicolette had a quick question and had her hand raised. If I could just turn it over to her real quick.
Sure.
Nicolette, I went ahead and unmuted you. Go ahead. If you could just also answer it. Go ahead.
There we go.
I wanted to ask, I basically go in with my mom. I just want to ask, is she okay with reading the screen to me?
Mhm.
And I just press, I want to make sure if I can do that.
Yes, you can. You can definitely do that. And if you need help even pressing the buttons, she can help with that too. You just tell her which ones to press, right?
Yeah, and I think, you know, in my experience as a voter, I sometimes am surprised by names on the ballot that I don't recognize, and I really want to make sure that I'm making an educated choice. So it sounds like there's some really great resources online to study up and do your homework in advance. So you don't have to spend too much time in the voting booth sweating trying to make your decision. You kind of know going in who you're going to vote for. So make sure you're checking out the website. Can you guys say out loud the website again, just so the folks at home know what to do?
Ballot.70, that's spelled out SEVENTY.org. 70 ballot.70.org, and you can save the picks that you make and email them to yourself. So when you go in, and I did this, there was a race, I guess, when do we vote on judges, Ashley?
Next year.
A lot of people and not a lot of names that stick. So it's really helpful when you go into the polling.
And Judith, I just dropped the declaration page for you in the chat. So that's the form you have. That's the exact form. You'll find it on that website, but that's from the Votes PA. That's the declaration. Okay.
And Lauren, I'm sorry, just to jump in, one of our ambassadors from Delaware just hopped on. So is your website that you use also for other states, or is that strictly for Pennsylvania?
We have a lot of great information for Delaware and New Jersey in the state too. The ballot tool won't help, but that's where Vote 411 is the League of Women Voters version. And that's really helpful too. So Vote 411 if you live outside of Pennsylvania.
Thank you. I just wanted to mention she had to hop off, but I'll catch up with her later and give her the resources that you provided.
Good. We love our Delaware and New Jersey as a former New Jerseyan.
Colin, did you have another question or comment?
Oh, can you?
Well, we're unmuting you, bud.
It's not a question. I just wanted to let Mrs. Lauren and Ashley know. I apologize for leaving while you guys were speaking. My dad, we own a family business, and they called me to work, asking me to work, so that's why I left and then came back. So.
Oh, thank you. No
So
problem.
Thank you for being with us.
Well, if no one has any other questions, let's all say a big thank you to our friends Lauren and Ashley, our new friends, and hopefully they will come back sometime and join us again. We really appreciated your time and all this great information.
Millie,